and I just got some assorted little things for today. One little thing is, if you remember Windows, that's a operating system I was most familiar with back in the 90s and the 2000s, and so I remember like Windows 95 kind of. I was still very young at the time. It was just a computer. It was accessible enough for me when I was under the age of 10. But this is something that somebody else pointed out about Windows XP, I think. So prior to Windows XP, computers were just presented as computers, and a lot of middle-aged people and older had little contact with computers, and up until like the Windows 95-ish era, computers were a niche thing that not most people were using a whole bunch. I don't know. But yeah, this one's kind of foggy. But around the Windows XP time, Windows XP notably had the default background image of a large green hill, just a scene of nature. And if you go look at most display computers for sale, they're going to be running Windows. And by default, they're going to have some nature scene as their background image. And a lot of the marketing of technology will use images of natural scenes like green hills and trees and flowers, or shapes that allude to flowers or waterfalls and things like that. And someone has a suggestion that this presentation of computers now with the associated imagery of natural scenes was some kind of a subtle message in itself, that computers are now being pushed as a part of everyday life, as nature should be. And now I personally live in a very out in the sticks area, so probably a lot of people have always lived in an urban environment with little contact with nature. So I can't really compare my experience with theirs, because I just have my experience that I'm more familiar with natural environments and not so much urban environments. Well, I thought it was interesting, but it sounded better in my head. Maybe some other time I'll have a better way to phrase that. Alright, now just onto the more general stuff. Well, we all know time's going incredibly fast. It's like, if you remember how to count Mississippis, you probably count 20 Mississippis before the clock goes over one more minute. So, in other words, a modern day hour is like 20 minutes from the 90s. So, yeah, the time is less value. I mean, time is like money. The more you print, the less valuable it is. So, yep. I mean, time is kind of precious because it's scarce, but then, the next exact same time of day is going to roll around faster and faster. So it's like, instead of days and nights being distinct, it's like outside the sun or moon will be turned off or on, or it'll be dark or light out. It's just like being in a room that could be dark until you flip on the light switch or turn it back off. It just doesn't matter. And sometimes I see in the wild clues of people beginning to wake up, but it's still pretty shameful how few people are up to speed. And the internet's probably going to get even more terrible to use. Well, I don't really know what else to say about that, other than the usual fallback of, go outside and find a very subtle way to try and spread the truth. If you just leave like a little paper note hidden somewhere, no one's gonna find out. Somebody might take a photo and it could circulate on social media. It's a possibility, but I think most people are wising up to the evils of social media, and more and more people are becoming aware of empty internet, as it's called. People are more aware of shady practices that websites do. People are now understanding just how horrible the internet is today, and how the ancient internet that of the 90s, even though it was flawed, it had some good parts. It's not coming back. So, we would just have to press on with life and know that this will all be done faster. So, it does feel like the faster time flies, the more days and weeks and months of just waiting around gets added on. And it's like there's this calendar timeline thing, and the faster you run through the calendar timeline, all of a sudden more and more and more boxes representing days and weeks and months get slapped on. It's like this never-ending treadmill type of a thing. You know what I'm getting at? Anyway, that's just a gripe. The most solid advice is what Jesus said. well, what to go through your day-to-day life. The most solid advice is, as Jesus said, ye shall know them by their fruits. And the tares, I'm done giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm done being patient, because all they did was take advantage of that. They would take advantage of my kindness and my patience. If I give an inch, they'd take 10 miles. And I'm just done. I'm no longer just going to assume that, maybe they're just grouchy or they don't trust me yet and time will make it better. No. As soon as somebody insults you for no reason or acts hostile to you, quit talking to them. Avoid them. And also look at them funny and point out to any humans that the freaks are inverted. But you also have to be aware of witches. And witches are women and they have their tells. They love to get piercings and tattoos and they love to get their hair dyed, so they have that warning coloration and that self-mutilation, the vandalism. And they constantly throw gang signs, and they tend to be obsessed with jewelry and weird fashion, and also they love to come right out and tell you that they're a witch. So visually you'll see them, and well, that's the obvious ones. And then, if they're that obvious, they're just going to tell you straight to your face that they're witches. But then there's the subtle witches, and their tell is they basically build a fortress out of fake Christianity. They might have a bunch of NIV Bibles and generic dove and fluffy white cloud fluff and generic empty words of encouragement, like Hallmark greeting card type crap. And they're gonna surround themselves with that stuff, but you should know that you can't be a Baphomet freak and a Christian at the same time. And someone that refuses to read KJV and refuses to understand what Jesus said, and they throw the devil horns and other hand symbols, and they hang out with inverted freaks all the time, and they're always going out of their way to try and muddy the waters to their own detriment. Yeah, you'll know them. You shall know them by their fruits. And obviously the very best way to go about your day-to-day life is just with straightforward instinctual logic. If you're familiar with, just common animals and you know the males and the females, you should have an idea as to generally how mammal males are. Dogs, cats, weasels, horses, bovines. You should know what a standard male is and what a standard female is, and you'll probably also see some intersex animals, and you'll notice their natural peculiarities when they might not have necessarily been given hormones after being born. Sometimes they are. I think I've met some animals that were experimented on with hormones, but that's not what I'm talking about. But you should understand nature, what is logical, what makes biological sense, and then wonder, why is this backwards for humans? So-called humans, but they're bootlegs. Jesus had some pretty harsh truths. There's a reason why churches won't talk about Revelation, and because churches also, they keep promoting Israel, like modern day country Israel, when you should know what Jesus calls, the synagogue of Satan. And people will always say, oh, Jesus was a dead Jew on a stick. Then they start pointing to the modern day idea of what that would be, which is completely, utterly false. And if you just read Revelation, you would know that's not how it is at all. But anyone that argues about ethnicity and nationality they're shills. And what I don't really understand actually is, in light of this whole mass gender inversion Satan worship, knowing now that they're all the same, modern day Jews are inverted, Muslims are inverted, which raises questions about the sexism of Islam because they're backwards, literally. Or the fake inverted Christians fighting with inverted open Satanists. I think a lot of these conflicts are staged to give them the impression that these guys are not all on the same team. And moving along, racism actually makes less sense, because now that you understand everyone's an invert, no one's natural, so why are they talking about evolution when they know, the biggest pushers of evolution are just the biggest inverts? Yeah, just apply real life logic, and knowing I'm addressing humans, and eventually I'm sure a human will hear this. And yes, I'm aware of the people that claim that they're helping out, but there's no evidence of them helping out. I know that they're shills. So that's what this is about, the instincts and the logic. You should know how you would like to be treated, and how you like to make friends, and how you want to get along with people and say nice things. And you will notice that the shells and the infiltrators and bad people, they want to make enemies immediately. They have no provocation, and yet they just start attacking someone verbally. They will antagonize someone just right off the bat. You shall know them by their fruits every single time. Their behavior is not logical, because what would be logical is they would be upfront and honest, and they wouldn't be inverted, and they would make friends and be nice. But you'll notice behaviors. You should really just focus on making friends in real life, and that they're quite scarce, but it's good to put in the effort, because eventually you'll get some kind of reward, some kind of return on your investment. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up for now. My voice is not very good today, and I don't have a whole lot of ideas and points right now, but props next time, and my voice is going really fast now. Oh, bye for now. Just some more unsolicited advice. Rely on what you know about nature and biology and pure sensible logic, and get rid of all of your preconceived notions, which is it's a lot harder to do it than to say it, because the programming really, I don't even know how they did it, but they just made us have this absolutely wrong concept of self and concept of how reality works, and it's hard to let go of the programming because it's in you so deep, and when I look back I realize that I mentally did a lot of the heavy lifting for just having wrong beliefs that I thought were beliefs that would make me popular. Basically, a long time ago, whenever I'd get into an argument, another person would say, "Do you want to be right or do you want to be liked?" Implying that you can either be right and have enemies, or you could be wrong and have friends, basically. Sometimes it's best to just simplify things down to basic black and white morality and black and white thinking. You'll probably remember being told constantly, don't judge a book by its cover, and people that are wearing toupees and have had plastic surgery and they have a dead eye and they're missing a finger joint, like they're going to be the ones telling you that. And you don't really hear idioms like cultural sayings and proverbs. You don't hear them said a whole lot anymore, but I remember that you'd hear them frequently in the 90s or see references to them. And now all we have are catchphrases and forced memes today. Anyway, I think something that I know is always been a big deal in day-to-day life, probably, I'm guessing, starting with the 50s or after the supposed World War II, which I'm sure something very interesting was actually going on, hidden behind the cover of a theatrical war. Americans and other nationalities too, but I mostly speak of America because that's what I'm experienced with. Anyway, Americans would just, from day one, we would be conditioned to worship celebrities and idolize celebrities and want to be like the people on TV or famous people, and we'd value things like autographs and memorabilia, and that was probably a bigger deal in the 50s than in the 60s than it is today. I don't know. Society's crumbling right now, so I don't really even know what's going on. It's all just crap. Anyway, I guess there's a lot of topics that could come from that, like a lot of people have always complained that celebrities have unattainable beauty standards, but then they say something bullshitty, like whenever people, especially real women that are in on the secret, but they protect the secrets. You know, all of those women that do that are married to free martins, so there's a correlation here between marrying a free martin and then losing your free will and being forced to protect secrets that hurt you. Anyway, so whenever criticizing famous castrati, women would go, oh, the castrati are unrealistically skinny. Like, they don't talk about anything else. They might talk about fake boobs or something and plastic surgery, but mostly they only talk about, oh, they're giving the little girls the impression that they're supposed to be stick skinny. If you actually shake the illusions and you can see clearly, you'll see that a lot of famous castrati are actually a little bit pudgier than men are biologically supposed to be. So that one, you know, these women, they never criticize free martins, ever. For obvious reasons, like, so they'll go, how come men are allowed to be fat and women are not allowed to be fat, well, which is also, that's not true. It's clearly not illegal, but they only complain about double standards. They might criticize the way so-called men will fall apart after age 30, but, you know, they only criticize castrati instead of martins, and That's what happens if you marry a freak. You lose your free will. I'm not sure what part of the process does it. Probably taking the wedding vows. I don't know. Don't take vows. That's some extremely good advice. Alright, just more general advice. Don't worry about making things perfect. Don't plan things out too much. Just plan out minimalistically and make something very, very short and easy that would only take no more than a half hour at most. Ideally, maybe just a few minutes to produce. By that I mean when you're out and about, outside, in town, whatever, and let's just say you happen to have a Sharpie and some sticky notes, make something short. And if you're going to produce media, which I hope more people will do that because, well, we just need more humans doing stuff. This is something that is complained about when it comes to indie media production. You should know by now that I think that it's actually all pretty much a hoax. The stuff that gets a wide release, what is called indie, it's not indie, it's like some kind of project that gets discrete funding. But, you'll notice that indie movies, everyone in them is still some inverted freak. Maybe there'll be a real woman in the background and that's it. Or an so-called independent video game, or just artists on the internet, or people that write fan fiction. They're just gonna make all of their characters inverted. It's a very common thing. Sometimes people will admit that the elites are inverted, but then what do common people do? They try to imitate the elites. Do common people try and imitate some toothless drunk laying out in the gutter, or do they try and imitate the people they see on TV? Well, in real life, actually, toothless gutter drunkards get imitated quite a lot, but I don't think that was people's main intention. But anyway, that's actually neither here nor there. You could talk about something interesting about the weird things in society that don't make sense. Oh yeah, there was some ad campaign about plus-size lingerie, because, America and Britain and Canada and Australia are really fat countries, and there's just something really weird about the media representation of that. I don't know, it's just kind of funny. I can't really form a coherent thought on that right now, but it's just like media is antagonizing the society that it's trying to impress. And there might be a better way to put that, but anyway, so it's current year, it's 2020, and only now are we starting to see here's a good example. In the past, people would complain about the lack of people of color in cartoons or movies, and saying that things get whitewashed or not represented accurately. Well, find a depiction of a real woman in these movies that is fair and not mean-spirited. Robin Hood Men in Tights. There's this biological woman actress, but she's chubby and she's wearing a fat suit, and all of the comments about the character she portrays is that the character is fat. So that's actually pretty derogatory of the one and only real woman character and actress in some film franchise from the 80s or something. I'm just jumping around all of the topics because here's another bit of advice. Can't always say something interesting, so the moment you find a more interesting topic, just completely abandon the previous one and go to the more interesting one. Because at this point, you're making a recording for you, aren't you? So if you just want to talk about something more interesting and forget about the boring stuff, just go ahead. Because there's always going to be a next time, anyhow. Anyway, so here's another thing about the media and society. Now, this is a moment I'm sure a lot of English-speaking people remember from the mid-2000s when, I think it was Fox News, they did that 4chan is hackers on steroids thing, and it was pretty much the best example of old media like television and newspapers hating the internet because not because the internet itself was worthy of being hated, because it was only the mid-2000s. It wasn't post-2007 internet, so there was no reason to hate it, But the reason why radio and newsprint and TV were bashing on the internet was because it was a competitor. And now, today, these other media giants and companies and forms of media are faltering, and they're just embracing the internet. If you still get a newspaper, because you need, a tablecloth or something, You're not reading it, you're using that newspaper for other reasons, but you'll notice that they've gotten thinner and thinner, but they still charge full price, and all of the articles are about, Netflix and video games and internet crap. all my newspaper talks about is politics and the internet. Because they're not even competitors anymore. There's no point in them even trying to fight it. They're going down, so they're just throwing in the towel and go, use the internet and go to our newspaper website. Or use the internet and go to our TV station website. So, some other time I'll collect more thoughts. I hope I hope you enjoyed hearing that. Because I'm sure we've all been very bored and frustrated lately. When I was going on about real women criticizing castrato models and going, oh, they're too skinny, and that's sending a bad message to our girls. They're completely and utterly ignoring all of the other issues, like they never say that castrati promote long necks and unrealistically huge straight shoulders and unrealistically long arms and unrealistically straight spines. These real women are criticizing boys that can possibly be a little tiny bit chubby or just a normal weight for a boy, and saying that sends a bad message. And then they're just not going to talk about how they're promoting long necks and long arms and straight shoulders, and that's unrealistic for women. And yeah, the other thought was how at long last the year 2020, which is supposedly far off in the future. Oh, and when I was talking about marketing, here's a good example of marketing. The movie Kangaroo Jack, the actual movie, versus how it was marketed. So, yeah, they'll just paint a product as being a certain thing. They'll dress it up in the marketing to try and make someone purchase it without actually seeing it in real life. And that's a metaphor, I guess, for one's concept of how real life works, I suppose, and our conception of what our existence is like, and then there's that problem of you just don't have the words to talk about certain things. It's like the words were deleted, as described in Orwell 1984, word deletion. But anyway, so in 2020, it only just recently have people of color been more represented in media, but the kicker is only inverted people get represented. So, people are saying that we need more Mexicans on TV or something like that, even though, movies and TV, that stuff just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's all play pretend, and it doesn't actually help anyone, but, it's an example of something that people have been demanding for a while, and only at long last, after so many technological advancements and changes in the way our society is run, only just recently are people of color being cast into the leading roles of television and comics and all that, and video games. You know what I'm getting at? Our society is marketed to us as if it's very morally advanced, but there's still, petty racism. And a lot of that is from agent provocateurs, though, so there's just, I don't know, the society's also being pushed for a race war. But even if all of the cultures might be different, at the end of the day, God's people are a tiny minority, and they're in all ethnic groups in all nations, so that's how it is. Only a tiny, tiny few people on Earth, and they're going to come from all over the world and be of all kinds of different ethnicities. We're God's people, we're Christ's sheep, and that's what unites us. And most of society is going to have different factions of Islam or Hinduism fighting, even though they're all inverted. So they all know that they are satanic bootleg creations, and it's that weird thing again. You get inverted clans Martins hating on inverted black people. They're enemies, but they're all inverts. They're all deny Christ, or they'll pretend to be fake Christian, but you already know about what they're hiding when they pretend to do that. It's once you understand that they're all inverted, it raises a few more questions about what exactly the logic of things is. And then that's when you realize that logic is a very human thing that these freaks, they don't have. All they have are their scripts. And yeah, you'll notice whenever the freaks get angry and they start accusing, they will use bad logic and bad arguments. And they just focus more on trying to bait people into getting angry and waste their time, instead of actually being logical, which only God's creations can do. And a common tactic is they'll just try and enrage someone into wasting their own time. So you'll probably hear more people challenging why you might like Flat Earth, and all you have to say in response to that is, I like Flat Earth because I like it. I don't need any other reason. Because, somebody else can assemble the proofs and other people already have, but then you get into the controlled opposition fake Flat Earth versus the genuine one that uses logic. It is not logical for the center of the Earth to be cold. The ice wall is cold. The center of the world is hot. I'm just gonna finish a thought. So, marketing is pretty much everything, not necessarily marketing for the purpose of getting physical dollars, but what's more valuable than money is your concentration and what you value. So, I guess some elite freaks that are way above the whole money and materialism stuff, like they're after your heart, they're after your mind, and marketing is to just get you to spend the money of your heart and mind, your attention and affection and obsession on this world and how it works, or how they want you to believe it works. So you probably know about that, and that's what the whole purpose of all the programming is, that makes you, if you don't understand something, they want you to feel bad about it and internalize the problem. And if they throw out these two ideas that they claim go together but they just don't fit, it's up to your brain to do the heavy lifting to justify it. Like, somewhere along the way we just get brainwashed to take even, like, just some throwaway statement that's said in a factual manner. We're supposed to take it as fact. Like, because somebody says things like, water is not wet, we might be conditioned to blindly accept that as fact and then do mental gymnastics and come up with scenarios to justify it. Like, already the justification for the statement water is not wet is that the water is extremely cold to the point where it'll freeze your finger before your finger thaws it. So yeah, I just demonstrated that sort of thing. If a person in a white lab coat would say things like, rocks can fly under their own power, like, we would probably do mental gymnastics. We would probably be like 14 or something and do mental gymnastics to try and make sense of the statement that rocks can fly under their own power. That's not a very good example. Maybe some other time I'll come up with an example of how bad the conditioning is and how we do the heavy lifting in our brains. But anyway, just some more, you shall know them by their fruits. Obvious stuff. The freaks are completely obsessed with names. I cannot stress that enough, and I guess some stuff I've already said before, I'll just bring it up again, because it bears repeating and people need to be more aware of it, and a few more people are slowly coming to wake up. But then there's that marketing real life, or whatever you'd call it. Marketing your existence in its current condition as something that you should buy into. Like, these people that are starting to wake up to the truth are trying to cope with it, make it seem less bad. Like, they'll say, oh, only the elites and the famous people are inverted. That is some hardcore denial, because if you know what the elites visually look like, you should look around in real life. But these people are so attached to their existence that they don't want to let go of it. Maybe it's like the sunk cost fallacy, where you feel like you've invested so much of your heart and your mind into something that you feel like you've just dumped so much thought and emotion and effort into something, you don't want to let go of it, but you have to let go of it, and you have to remember every single day that this place is going to go up in flames, and all the works therein will be destroyed. All the nice things will be destroyed. All the bad things will be destroyed. It's all going to be gone. And as you know, time is speeding up, and the sun and moon are getting a lot brighter. You should just know that you can't deny these things. They're there. Anybody could just go outside on a clear day and see how true it is, and just see all of the clocks rapidly getting out of sync really fast, and counting Mississippis and looking into things that got memory hold, or, you can't deny this stuff anymore. And yeah, that's it. At this point, I'm only just gonna say obvious things.